In the quiet town of Oak Ridge, nestled in the rolling hills of the countryside, lived an old man named Commander Jack Hart. He was a retired military officer, a man of few words, who spent most of his days in solitude. His small cabin, tucked away at the edge of town, was his haven, a place where he could reflect on his years of service and the many battles he had fought. The town had grown peaceful over the years, and so had Jack. Gone were the days of commanding armies and making life-or-death decisions. Now he filled his time with gardening, reading old books, and taking long walks through the woods. But one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack's peaceful world was suddenly shaken. A strange, bright light appeared in the sky, cutting through the dusky evening like a comet on a crash course. Jack squinted up at the sky, his weathered face a mask of curiosity. It wasn't like anything he had ever seen before, certainly not an ordinary shooting star. The light flickered and swirled, growing brighter with each passing second. His instincts, honed from years of military experience, kicked in. There was something off about this. Without thinking twice, Jack grabbed his flashlight, his old army jacket, and set off toward the source of the light. His heart pounded in his chest, and the familiar scent of the woods filled his lungs as he trudged through the thickening darkness. His footsteps were steady, but there was an urgency now, a sense that something was coming, something important. He reached the clearing in less than an hour. What he found there was beyond anything he could have imagined. The ground was scorched and cracked, smoke rising from the impact site. In the middle of the clearing was a large metallic object, its surface glowing faintly, pulsing with an unnatural energy. It looked like a ship, but unlike any Jack had ever seen. The metal was smooth, almost fluid, and the design was completely foreign to his eyes. As he approached cautiously, Jack heard faint sounds coming from within the wreckage. It wasn't the whirring of machinery or the beeping of electronics. No, this was something else. It was a voice, a whisper, almost like a cry for help. Jack's hand instinctively went to his side, where his old pistol sat in its holster, but he hesitated. His years of service had taught him not to jump to conclusions, and this was no ordinary situation. He circled the wreckage, searching for a way in. His flashlight illuminated the twisted metal, revealing strange markings and symbols etched into the surface. These weren't from any nation he recognized. These were alien, something from beyond the stars. Then, Jack's eyes caught movement. 3 figures emerged from the wreckage, each of them slowly and unsteadily. His heart skipped a beat. They were women, but not like any women Jack had ever seen before. Their skin shimmered, almost as if it were made of stardust, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Their eyes were large and deep, filled with a quiet intelligence that Jack couldn't quite place. But the most striking feature was their hair. It flowed like liquid silver, cascading down their backs in long, delicate strands. The 3 women were clearly injured. Their movements were slow, unsteady, and they seemed to be struggling to stay conscious. One of them collapsed to her knees, and the others quickly rushed to her side, supporting her with strange, graceful movements. Jack's instincts kicked in again. These women needed help. They were in danger. His mind raced as he quickly assessed the situation. This wasn't just a random crash. This was something far more serious, something he had never encountered in all his years of service. Without thinking, Jack approached the group. He called out softly to them, trying to make himself heard over the hum of the damaged ship. "Hey, you need help." "I can." Before he could finish, one of the women raised her hand, stopping him. Her voice was soft but urgent. "Please, help us. They are coming for us." Jack's eyes narrowed. "Who is coming?" The woman looked at him with a mixture of fear and relief in her eyes. "The Empire. They will stop at nothing to find us." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. There was so much she wasn't saying, but one thing was clear. Whoever these women were, they were in deep trouble. And somehow, Jack knew he couldn't turn his back on them. He knelt beside the woman who had spoken, offering her his hand. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll help you. I'll get you to safety." The woman took his hand, and for a brief moment, their eyes locked. There was a connection, something unspoken between them. Jack felt a deep, unshakable resolve settle in his chest. He didn't know who these women were or where they came from, but he knew one thing for sure. They were not going to face this alone. Jack Hart wasn't just going to stand by and watch. He would fight to protect them, no matter the cost. The old man's life was about to change, and he was ready. Jack carefully helped the three women to their feet, supporting them as they struggled to stand. Their alien bodies, though unlike anything he had ever seen, felt fragile in his hands. The woman who had spoken earlier, her name was Lyra, seemed to be the leader. Her silver hair shimmered under the light of the moon, and her eyes, though tired, were sharp and full of determination. The others, Asha and Mira, were just as beautiful, but they were weaker, shaking with exhaustion. Jack's heart raced as he looked around. The wreckage of the ship continued to hum with energy, the strange light still pulsing in the distance. He couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. There was a presence in the air, something threatening, something that felt far too close for comfort. "Are you all right?" Jack asked gently, his voice steady despite the fear creeping up on him. Lyra nodded slowly, though her face was pale. "We are, for now, but they will come soon. We must move quickly." "Who's coming? Who are they?" Jack asked, his voice low. "The Lixian Empire," Lyra replied, her voice heavy with fear. "We were their prisoners. They sent us here as part of their experiments. But we escaped. We have to get away from them." Jack's mind spun with questions. He had never heard of the Lixian Empire before. He had faced enemies, yes, but nothing like this. His military experience told him that the situation was serious. These women weren't just fugitives. They were valuable, and someone would come looking for them, no matter the cost. "Where are we going?" Jack asked, trying to keep his voice calm. He had to think fast. "How can I help you?" Lyra's gaze softened as she looked at Jack. "You have already helped us, but we must leave this place. We cannot stay here much longer. The Empire's agents will track us." Jack looked at the stars above them, then back at the ship. He had an old jeep hidden in his cabin, but it wouldn't be enough to outrun whatever was coming. He needed to get them to safety, somewhere far from Oak Ridge, somewhere they could be protected. "You're right," Jack said after a moment. "We need to move. There's a place I know, a small station on the edge of the system. It's far from here. We'll head there, and I'll get you the help you need." Lyra nodded, though her face remained tense. "Thank you. You do not know what this means to us." Jack helped them into the old jeep, making sure they were comfortable. As they drove away from the clearing, Jack couldn't help but feel a strange sense of duty. He had no idea what kind of danger he was about to face, but one thing was certain: he wasn't going to let these women fall back into the hands of the Empire. The ride was long and quiet. Lyra, Asha, and Mira were still recovering from their ordeal. Every now and then, Jack would glance over at them, his mind racing with thoughts of the strange mission he had just found himself part of. He had always been a man of action, but now he was unsure of what his role in this situation truly was. They passed through thick forests and winding roads, the sound of the jeep's engine the only noise in the otherwise still night. Jack's thoughts kept returning to the Empire, the Lixian Empire. Who were they? What kind of power did they hold? And why had they been experimenting on these women? After hours of driving, they finally reached the small space station Jack had in mind. It was nothing special, a quiet, isolated place used by travelers passing through the system. Jack knew the owner, an old acquaintance from his days in the military. She was the kind of person who didn't ask too many questions and was always willing to help out when needed. As they pulled up to the station, Jack felt a sense of relief wash over him. For the moment, they were safe. He could only hope that they could rest here long enough to figure out what to do next. The station was dimly lit, with a small control room and a few empty docking bays. It was quiet, almost too quiet, and Jack's instincts were on edge. He quickly ushered the women inside, locking the door behind them. The station was secure for now, but he knew it wouldn't be long before the Empire's agents found them. Lyra looked at Jack, her eyes filled with gratitude. "We are safe, for now, but they will not give up. The Empire does not let its prisoners go easily." Jack nodded grimly. "I won't let them take you again. I promise." Asha, still weak, leaned against the wall. "Thank you. You have no idea what you've done for us. We've been running for so long. We didn't know where to go." Mira smiled faintly, though her eyes betrayed the pain she felt. "You've given us hope again, something we thought we had lost." Jack felt a lump in his throat. He was no hero, just an old man trying to do the right thing. But the gratitude in their eyes made him feel like he had done something important. He wasn't sure how or why he had become involved in this strange journey, but he couldn't back down now. He had made a promise, and he intended to keep it. "Rest," Jack said, his voice calm but firm. "We've got time. We'll figure out what to do next. Just stay here, and I'll keep watch." As the women settled in, Jack kept an eye on the outside world. He knew the Lixian Empire would stop at nothing to find them. But for now, they had a moment of peace, and for Jack, that was enough to keep fighting. The silence of the small space station was unsettling. Jack had spent years in the military, and he knew that silence was never a good sign. As the hours passed, he kept watch, peering out the small windows of the station. The stars twinkled brightly in the vastness of space, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, something coming closer. Lyra, Asha, and Mira rested in the dimly lit corner of the station. They were still recovering from the crash and their time in captivity, but Jack could see that their strength was slowly returning. Despite their otherworldly appearance, they were still just women, scared, vulnerable, and above all, desperate to escape the empire that had held them captive for so long. "Do you think they've found us yet?" Asha asked quietly, her voice soft but tinged with worry. She sat on a chair near the corner, her eyes scanning the room. Jack didn't answer right away. Instead, he checked the station's radar system again. It had been silent for hours, but he wasn't fooled. The Lixian Empire was no stranger to technology. They were powerful, far more advanced than anything Jack had seen. They could have tracked them here easily. "I don't know," Jack replied, his voice low and calm. "But we can't wait around to find out. We need to leave this station, find somewhere safer." Mira, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "The Empire has ships everywhere. They will find us, no matter where we go. We need to go back to our world, to Lixia." Jack looked at her with concern. "Lixia, that's your home?" Lyra nodded, her expression serious. "It was, until the Empire fell. Our world was once a peaceful place, but now it's a prison. It's controlled by the Empire's cruel leaders. They used us as experiments, and when we escaped, they sent hunters after us. They won't stop until they find us." Jack felt a rush of anger. He had faced enemies in his time, but none as ruthless as this. He couldn't imagine what these women had gone through. To be captured, experimented on, and forced to run for their lives. He couldn't let that continue. He couldn't let them go back. "We'll figure it out," Jack said, trying to reassure them. "We're not going back there. We'll find a way to stop them." But deep down, Jack knew that time was running out. The Empire would eventually track them down, and he wasn't sure if there was any place safe enough for them to hide. They had to move fast. Suddenly, the station's radar beeped. Jack froze. His heart skipped a beat as the small screen lit up, showing a red blip heading their way. "Too late," he muttered under his breath. The blip was growing larger, a ship moving fast toward the station. Jack quickly turned to the women. "Get ready," he ordered. "We're leaving." Lyra, Asha, and Mira sprang to their feet, their fear evident in their eyes. But there was something else there too, a sense of determination. They had already fought for their freedom once. Now they had to fight again. Jack ran to the station's small shuttle bay, his military training kicking in. He had worked with all kinds of technology over the years, and while the station's equipment was primitive compared to what the Lixian Empire had, it would have to do. He quickly powered up the shuttle, hoping it would be enough to outrun the approaching ship. The ship on the radar was close now, and Jack could see its shape through the station's windows. A sleek, dark vessel, like a shadow in the night. It was unmistakably Lixian in design, with sharp, angular edges and glowing lights that pulsed ominously. "Let's move," Jack shouted, as the women climbed into the shuttle. He activated the engines, and the shuttle lifted off the ground with a soft hum. The Lixian ship was almost on top of them now. Jack's hands gripped the controls, his fingers moving with practiced ease. They had no time to waste. As the shuttle shot into the depths of space, Jack could feel the weight of the chase bearing down on them. The Lixian ship was fast, far faster than their shuttle, but Jack had an advantage. Their ship wasn't designed for stealth. He had been a commander, and he knew how to think outside the box. "I'll try to lose them in the asteroid field," Jack said, glancing at the women. "Hold on tight." The shuttle veered sharply, heading toward a nearby asteroid belt. The space between the rocks was tight, but it was the only chance they had. Jack steered with precision, narrowly avoiding collisions with the large, spinning asteroids. The Lixian ship followed them, its engines roaring in pursuit. But the pilot of the enemy ship wasn't as skilled as Jack. They were slower to navigate the field, and Jack used that to his advantage. "Keep going," Lyra shouted, her voice full of urgency. "Don't stop." Jack gritted his teeth and pushed the shuttle's engines harder. They dodged and weaved through the field, the Lixian ship still on their tail. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, after what felt like hours, they burst out of the asteroid belt, the enemy ship still far behind. Jack didn't slow down, not until they were sure they had lost their pursuers. "We did it," Asha whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. For now, anyway. The shuttle coasted into the darkness of space, away from the danger for the moment. But Jack knew they couldn't stop. They had escaped, yes, but the Lixian Empire was relentless. There was no telling how long they had before the chase began again. Jack glanced at the women in the back, their faces full of gratitude, but still marked with fear. They were free. For now. But the battle was far from over. The shuttle floated quietly through space, the stars outside shining brightly as they sped away from the danger of the Lixian Empire. Jack kept his hand steady on the controls, but inside, his mind raced. They had escaped, but only for a moment. The Lixian Empire was relentless, and he knew they would not give up until they had caught up with them. Lyra, Asha, and Mira were still silent in the back of the shuttle, their eyes focused on the darkness outside the window. The fear that had been in their eyes earlier had softened, but it had not disappeared. They were far from safe, and they knew it. Jack glanced at them in the rearview mirror. "We're heading toward a neutral zone," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "It's a place where the Empire's reach is limited. We can lay low there for a while." Lyra turned toward him, her large eyes filled with a mixture of hope and doubt. "How long do you think we'll be safe there?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," Jack admitted, "but it's our best shot right now. The Lixian Empire doesn't have much influence in that area, at least not yet." Asha shifted in her seat, her voice soft but firm. "And what happens after? What if they find us again?" "We keep running," Jack replied, his voice steady. "I'll protect you, all of you, no matter what it takes." Mira, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "Why are you helping us?" Her voice was laced with both curiosity and gratitude. You don't owe us anything. You're risking your life for strangers." Jack took a deep breath, staring ahead at the stars. For a moment, he didn't answer. He had asked himself the same question many times since this all began. Why had he chosen to help them? He was just an old man. They weren't his people. But when he looked at them, he saw the same kind of courage he had seen in soldiers, in people who had fought for what was right. "Because it's the right thing to do," Jack said at last. "I've seen enough suffering in my life to know when something's wrong. The Lixian Empire. They don't deserve to control anyone, and they definitely don't deserve to treat you like that." Lyra nodded slowly, as if weighing his words. "You're right. We were never meant to be their prisoners. We were born free, but they took that from us." Jack's heart went out to them. He couldn't imagine what they had endured, the horrors they had experienced under the Empire's control. And yet, despite it all, they were still strong, still fighting. It made him admire them even more. The shuttle continued its journey through the stars, the silence between them growing comfortable, though the weight of their situation hung in the air. Jack kept his focus on the controls, knowing that the farther they traveled from the Empire, the safer they would be. But that wasn't a guarantee. The Lixian Empire had technology far beyond anything Earth had ever seen. They could track them, find them, no matter how far they went. Hours passed, and Jack couldn't help but feel the strain of their journey. His body ached from years of service, and the pressure of keeping everyone safe was starting to take its toll. But he refused to let it show. He couldn't afford to be weak now. "We're almost there," Jack said, glancing back at the women. "Just hang in there a little longer." Lyra gave him a small smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you, Jack. We don't know how to repay you for everything." "There's no need to repay me," Jack replied with a quiet smile. "I'm just doing what anyone would do in my shoes." Asha spoke up again, her voice filled with a quiet wonder. "You're a soldier, aren't you?" "A commander." Jack nodded. "I was. A long time ago." "I can tell," Asha said, her eyes scanning him thoughtfully. "You're different. You've seen a lot, haven't you?" "I have," Jack answered, his voice quiet. "But it's not the past that matters now. It's what we do in the present." Mira leaned forward, her silver hair falling around her face. "And what will we do now? What happens next?" Jack looked at her, then turned his gaze back to the stars. They were in uncharted space, far from Earth, with no clear destination in sight. For the first time in a long while, Jack felt uncertain. The future was a mystery, a vast unknown, just like the space they were traveling through. But one thing was certain: he wasn't going to stop fighting for these women. They were his responsibility now. "We find a way to make them pay," Jack said, his voice firm. "We stop the Lixian Empire from doing to anyone else what they did to you. That's what we'll do." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Lyra, Asha, and Mira exchanged glances, and Jack saw a spark of hope in their eyes. It was a small thing, but it was enough. He didn't know what would happen next or how they would stop the Empire, but he knew one thing for sure: he wouldn't give up. Not now, not ever. As the shuttle continued its course through the stars, Jack's resolve hardened. They had a long road ahead of them, and the Empire would stop at nothing to find them. But they had something the Empire couldn't take away: the will to fight, the will to survive. And that was all they needed. The shuttle drifted peacefully through the stars, but the silence that had settled among them felt heavy, filled with uncertainty. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that danger was always just one step behind, watching them from the darkness of space. The closer they got to the neutral zone, the more he feared what they would find there. It was a place of refuge, yes, but it was also a place where people disappeared without a trace. The women, still recovering from their escape, were quiet as they sat in the back. Lyra's silver hair shimmered faintly in the dim light of the shuttle, her sharp eyes lost in thought. Asha stared out the window, her expression distant, while Mira seemed to be deep in contemplation, her brow furrowed. Jack kept his focus on the controls, guiding the shuttle with precision through the endless void of space. The stars stretched out before them, distant and cold, offering no answers to the questions that weighed on his mind. He had promised to protect them, but he didn't know how much longer he could keep that promise. The silence was broken by Lyra's voice, soft but filled with urgency. "Jack, we need to talk." Jack glanced over his shoulder. "What is it?" Lyra took a deep breath before speaking again. "You said you would help us, but we need to know something. Can you really keep us safe? We are far from Earth now, and the Empire is relentless. We don't know who to trust, and we can't afford to make mistakes." Jack felt a chill run down his spine at the seriousness in her voice. He knew she was right. They couldn't keep running forever, but he also knew that he wasn't the man he used to be. There were no guarantees, no easy solutions. "I'll do everything I can," Jack said, his voice steady but filled with doubt. "But I can't promise safety. I'm not a hero. I'm just trying to make things right." Asha turned around, her dark eyes searching his face. "You're doing more than anyone else would. You're putting yourself at risk for us." Jack nodded, but the weight of her words settled heavily on his heart. "I don't have a choice. You've been through enough. I can't let them hurt you again." Mira finally spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "There's something we need to tell you, something you might not want to hear." Jack turned to face her, his curiosity piqued. "What is it?" Lyra and Mira exchanged a glance. Then Lyra took a deep breath. "We didn't just escape the Lixian Empire by accident. We were sent here on purpose. Our mission was to find something. A weapon, something that could destroy the Empire. But we've been hunted ever since we found it." Jack's heart raced as he tried to process her words. A weapon? What kind of weapon could bring down such a powerful empire? And why have they been sent here to find it? "Where is it?" Jack asked, his voice tight with urgency. Lyra's eyes darkened. "It's hidden on a planet far from here, a place called Zora. We were supposed to retrieve it and bring it back to our world, but we were intercepted. The Lixians knew we were coming. They've been chasing us ever since." Jack felt his mind race. If there was a weapon that could destroy the Lixian Empire, then it could change everything. It could end the Empire's reign of terror once and for all. But finding it wouldn't be easy. Zora was a dangerous world, a place where few dared to go. "We have to go to Zora," Jack said, his voice filled with determination. "If there's a chance we can stop the Empire, we have to take it." Lyra nodded, though her face remained grim. "It's not going to be easy. Zora is a place full of danger, harsh climates, treacherous terrain, and the Lixians have sent their best hunters there. They're looking for us, and they'll be waiting for anyone who tries to follow." Jack knew the risks, but he also knew they didn't have many choices. The Empire was too strong, too far-reaching. If they wanted to stand a chance, they had to find that weapon. It was their only hope. "We'll need to make preparations," Jack said, his mind already working through the plan. "We'll have to land on a nearby station to rest and gather supplies. I'll contact some old friends of mine, people who can help us. Then we'll head to Zora." Asha shook her head. "How will we get past the Lixian hunters? They're more powerful than anything we've ever faced, and they have weapons we can't even imagine." Jack didn't answer right away. He had seen the kind of weapons the Lixian Empire used, and he knew they were far beyond anything Earth could produce. But there was something he had learned over the years. Technology, no matter how advanced, was never invincible. With the right strategy, with the right people, anything was possible. "We'll be careful," Jack said at last. "We'll use the shadows, stay hidden. I know the Empire, and I know how they think. We can outsmart them." Mira looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "You're really willing to do this? You'll risk everything?" Jack met her gaze, his resolve hardening. "I will, and I'll make sure we get through this, no matter what." With a deep breath, Lyra spoke again. "We trust you, Jack. We have no choice but to follow you." The words hung in the air, a silent promise between them. They were in this together now. There was no turning back. As the shuttle continued its journey toward the neutral zone, Jack's mind worked through the next steps. They had a mission now, a dangerous one, but it was a chance to end the Empire's control. It was their chance to fight back. The road ahead was uncertain, but Jack knew one thing for sure: he would never stop fighting for them. The Empire would fall, and they would make sure of it. The shuttle continued its quiet journey through the endless space, each passing minute adding to the tension that hung between them. Jack sat at the controls, his hands gripping the steering panel as he guided them toward the nearest space station. The plan was simple: rest, gather supplies, and make contact with people who might be able to help them. But deep down, Jack knew that things would not be that simple. The Lixian Empire was too powerful, too determined. Lyra, Asha, and Mira were quiet as they sat in the back, each of them lost in their own thoughts. The weight of their mission was pressing on all of them, but Jack could sense something else in their eyes, something like hope. It was fragile, delicate, but it was there. They had a chance now, a real chance to strike back. As the shuttle approached the small space station, Jack felt a strange sense of relief. It wasn't much, just a small refueling station on the edge of the neutral zone, but it would do. The station's lights flickered in the distance, a welcome sight after the darkness of space. "We're almost there," Jack said, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, though he knew it wouldn't be long before they were back on the run. But for now, they had a moment of safety. Asha looked out the window, her eyes scanning the station. "I don't like the look of it," she muttered, her tone cautious. "It's too quiet." Jack nodded. He had a feeling she was right. There was something about the station that didn't sit well with him. The emptiness of space was one thing, but this station felt like it was hiding something. Still, they had no choice. They needed fuel and supplies, and they couldn't afford to be picky. He piloted the shuttle into the docking bay, the familiar hum of the engines reverberating through the shuttle. The bay doors slowly closed behind them, and Jack brought the shuttle to a stop. "Stay close," Jack warned the women. "We'll go in, get what we need, and leave. No delays." Lyra nodded. "We'll be ready." The group stepped out of the shuttle and into the station's dimly lit halls. The air was stale, and the walls were lined with old equipment that hadn't been used in years. The station had the look of a place that had seen better days. But Jack didn't have time to think about that. They needed to move quickly. The first stop was the supply room. The shelves were stocked with food, water, and basic survival equipment. Jack quickly gathered what they would need for the journey ahead. Asha and Mira checked the crates for anything else they could use, while Lyra kept watch by the door. "We don't have much time," Jack muttered as he grabbed a few more ration packs. "We need to get out of here before someone notices us." As they turned to leave, a soft sound echoed through the hallway. The sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate. Jack's heart skipped a beat. His training kicked in instantly. "Get to the shuttle now," he ordered. They ran back to the docking bay, but as they reached the door, it slid open, revealing a figure standing in the doorway. A man, tall with a rough, weathered face. He wore the uniform of a Lixian soldier. Jack's pulse quickened. They had been found. "You're not going anywhere," the soldier said, his voice cold and menacing. For a moment, there was silence. Jack's mind raced. He couldn't fight them all. Not here, not now. He needed a plan, something that would give them a chance to escape. But Lyra was the first to react. With surprising speed, she stepped forward, her eyes locked on the soldier. "You don't want to do this," she said, her voice calm but filled with power. The soldier hesitated for just a moment, and that was all Lyra needed. In an instant, she moved, her body a blur as she grabbed a nearby pipe from the floor and swung it at the soldier. He barely had time to react before he was knocked back, crashing into a pile of crates. Go, Jack shouted, already moving toward the shuttle. Asha and Mira were right behind him, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had seen Lyra fight before, but this was something different. There was a force in her, a raw power that Jack hadn't fully understood until now. As they reached the shuttle, Jack quickly powered up the engines. "Get in," he yelled. The women scrambled into the shuttle, their faces filled with both awe and fear. Jack hit the thrusters, and the shuttle shot out of the docking bay, the Lixian soldier still lying unconscious in the hallway behind them. "We need to get to Zora," Jack said, his voice filled with urgency. "No more stops. We can't afford to be delayed." Lyra nodded, still breathing heavily from the confrontation. "We'll make it," she said, though her voice was tinged with doubt. "But it won't be easy." "We've made it this far," Jack replied. "We can make it through anything." The shuttle shot into the stars, its engines humming steadily as they left the space station behind. But Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were being hunted. The Lixian Empire would not stop. Not now. Not ever. But they had something the Empire couldn't take away: their will to survive. And as long as they had that, they had a chance. The shuttle flew through the cold expanse of space, the stars outside distant and indifferent to the dangers that lurked just behind them. Jack kept his eyes on the controls, his hand steady but his mind alert. Every sense was focused, his thoughts constantly flicking to the Lixian Empire and the weapon they were about to find on Zora. There was no turning back now. Lyra, Asha, and Mira sat quietly in the back, each one lost in their thoughts. The last few days had been filled with uncertainty, but there was something different now. They had passed through the most dangerous part of their journey, and they were closer than ever to the weapon that could end the Lixian Empire's reign of terror. But there was still a fear that hung in the air. They knew that Zora wasn't going to be an easy place to reach. The planet was surrounded by dangerous storms and unpredictable terrain. Even if they landed safely, the weapon they sought might not be what they expected. "Are we close?" Asha asked, her voice breaking the silence. Jack glanced over his shoulder, his expression firm. "Yes, we'll be landing soon. Just stay alert." They had been traveling for hours, the silent tension between them growing thicker with every passing moment. Jack knew they were all on edge, but he also knew that there was no room for fear now. Zora was their only hope, and they had to stay focused. Lyra spoke up, her voice calm but filled with an underlying tension. "How are we going to find the weapon once we're on Zora? It's a large planet." "We'll follow the coordinates," Jack answered. "The weapon is hidden in an ancient temple deep in the mountains. It's well protected, but we have no other choice. We have to get to it before the Lixians do." Mira shifted in her seat, her expression unreadable. "And what if the Lixians are already there? What if they found it?" Jack took a deep breath. "We won't know until we get there, but we'll be careful. We won't rush in blindly." Zora's atmosphere slowly became visible through the shuttle's window. A vast, green world surrounded by swirling clouds. The closer they got, the more Jack's heart pounded. They were about to land in enemy territory, and he knew the Lixian Empire would be watching. "I'm going to make the descent," Jack said, pulling back on the shuttle's controls. The shuttle dipped down toward Zora's surface, the landscape of rocky mountains and dense forests slowly coming into view. He could feel the weight of the mission pressing on him. The shuttle's engines hummed as they entered the planet's atmosphere, the turbulence shaking the craft slightly. Lyra, Asha, and Mira remained silent, their eyes focused on the ground below. As they neared the landing site, Jack spotted the outline of the ancient temple. It was nestled between two jagged peaks, hidden from view by thick trees and steep cliffs. This was it, the place where everything would change. Jack's voice was steady but filled with resolve. "We're landing now. Get ready." The shuttle touched down gently on the rocky ground, its engines whirring to a halt. Jack powered it off and looked over his shoulder at the women. "We're here. Stay close. We don't know what's waiting for us." Lyra stood up first, her eyes sharp. "Let's do this." They made their way to the hatch, and Jack opened it slowly, his hand on the weapon at his side. The air on Zora was thick and humid, the smells of the forest heavy with the scent of moss and earth. The sound of distant birds calling echoed through the trees, but there was a stillness to the place that made Jack uneasy. They moved quickly, weaving between trees and rocks as they headed toward the temple. The path was rough, the terrain steep and uneven. Jack's mind stayed sharp, always scanning their surroundings for any signs of danger. As they neared the temple, something felt wrong. The air was too still, the silence too absolute. Jack motioned for the group to stop. He listened closely, his instincts telling him that something was off. "Stay low," he whispered. "We're not alone." Just as he said that, the sound of footsteps echoed from behind them. Jack spun around, his heart racing. Lixian soldiers were emerging from the trees, their weapons drawn. It was clear they had been waiting for them. Lyra didn't hesitate. She lunged forward, her movements swift and precise as she knocked one of the soldiers to the ground. Asha and Mira followed quickly, their faces filled with determination. Jack didn't waste a second. He joined the fight, his hands moving with the precision of someone who had lived through countless battles. The soldiers were skilled, but Jack's years of experience were an advantage. One by one, the Lixian soldiers were taken down, their weapons scattered on the ground. But they knew this was only the beginning. The temple was still ahead, and the real challenge lay inside. Breathing heavily, Jack wiped the sweat from his forehead. "That's just the first wave. We need to move." The women nodded, their eyes filled with the same fierce determination. They had come this far, and they would not stop now. Together, they approached the ancient temple, the stone walls rising high above them. Jack knew the weapon was close. They had to find it before the Lixians regrouped. "We're almost there," Jack said. "Let's finish this." And with that, they entered the temple, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that the fate of the galaxy rested in their hands.